My wife left me after my car accident left me disabled, telling me this isn't the life I wanted. She thought she was walking away from financial ruin and a damaged husband. What she didn't know was that I'd been hiding something about our insurance policy that would destroy her perfect escape plan. My name is Daniel Sullivan, and at 52 years old, I thought I understood what marriage meant. I'd built a successful contracting business in Portland over 20 years, survived one divorce, and believed that when I married Ashley 6 years ago, I'd found someone who truly loved me. I was wrong about a lot of things, but I was right about one crucial detail that would save my life. Ashley was 28 when we met at a real estate conference where she was working as an agent. I was 46, recently divorced, and frankly surprised that someone so young and beautiful would be interested in a middle-aged contractor. But Ashley seemed genuinely attracted to my stability, my success, and what she called my mature perspective on life. We married after 18 months of dating, and Ashley left her real estate career to focus on our home and what she called building our future together. I didn't mind supporting her financially. My construction company was thriving, and I enjoyed being able to provide the kind of lifestyle she'd never had access to before. For the first few years, everything seemed perfect. Ashley was attentive, affectionate, and enthusiastic about our life together. She redecorated our house, planned elaborate vacations, and frequently told me how grateful she was to have found someone who could give her security and love. But about 8 months before my accident, I started noticing subtle changes in Ashley's behavior that made me uncomfortable, though I couldn't quite articulate why. She began spending more time at the gym, often staying for hours beyond what any reasonable workout would require. She'd started dressing differently, more attention to makeup and clothing, even for simple errands around town. Her phone, which had never been off limits before, suddenly required privacy and was always face down on tables. Most concerning was how she'd begun asking more detailed questions about my business finances, my insurance policies, and what she called our long-term financial planning. She wanted to understand exactly how much money we had, where it was invested, and what would happen to our assets if something happened to me. At the time, I told myself these were natural concerns for a wife who wanted to be involved in our financial future. But something about the timing and persistence of her questions felt calculated rather than caring. That's when I started taking some precautions that I never mentioned to Ashley. I'd learned caution from my first marriage, which had ended when my ex-wife cleaned out our joint accounts and disappeared with her personal trainer. So when Ashley's behavior started shifting, I quietly began protecting our assets in ways she wouldn't notice or expect. The accident happened on a Tuesday morning in March. I was supervising a roofing project when scaffolding collapsed, sending me 20 feet down onto concrete. The impact crushed 3 vertebrae in my lower spine and left me with what doctors described as incomplete paraplegia. I could move my arms and upper body, but my legs were completely paralyzed. During my 6 weeks in the hospital, Ashley was a model wife. She visited daily, brought flowers, spoke optimistically about our future together, and assured me that we'd adapt to whatever challenges lay ahead. She held my hand during doctor consultations and asked thoughtful questions about physical therapy and home modifications. I wanted to believe her support was genuine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was performing for the medical staff, rather than expressing authentic emotions. The first crack in her facade appeared during a meeting with our insurance representative. Ashley had insisted on attending to understand our coverage and options, and she listened intently as the agent explained my benefits. When she learned that my disability payments would be substantial but not immediate, and that the house would need expensive modifications for wheelchair accessibility, I saw something shift in her expression. The supportive wife disappeared for just a moment, replaced by someone calculating costs and benefits. That night, she asked me directly about my life insurance policies. Daniel, I know this is difficult to discuss, but I need to understand what would happen financially if— She paused delicately. If your injuries lead to other complications. I just want to make sure I'm prepared for any scenario. I told her we had adequate coverage and that she shouldn't worry about money. What I didn't tell her was that I'd made some changes to those policies months earlier, when her behavior first started concerning me. 3 weeks after I came home from the hospital, Ashley's true feelings finally surfaced. I was struggling with basic transfers from my wheelchair to the couch when she walked into the living room with a suitcase in her hand. "Daniel, I need to be honest with you," she said, not meeting my eyes. "This isn't the life I wanted. I never signed up to be a caregiver, and I can't handle watching you struggle like this every day." I stared at her, processing what she was actually saying. "Ashley, I'm still the same person. I'm still your husband. This is just something we have to adapt to together." She shook her head firmly. "No, it's not. You're not the same person, and this isn't the marriage I agreed to. I'm still young, Daniel. I deserve a normal life with someone who can give me the future I want." "What about the vows we made, in sickness and in health?" Ashley's expression hardened. "Those are just words, Daniel. The reality is that your medical bills are going to drain our savings. Insurance will only cover so much, and I'm not going to spend the next 30 years taking care of an invalid." The word invalid hit me like a physical blow, but it also confirmed what I'd been suspecting about Ashley's true character. "So you're just leaving? Walking away from our marriage because I'm not convenient anymore?" "I'm being practical," she replied coldly. "We're facing financial ruin. You're never going to get better, and I refuse to sacrifice my life for someone who can't even walk to the bathroom independently." She paused at the door and delivered her final blow. "I've already spoken to a lawyer about divorce proceedings. You'll hear from them soon." After she left, I sat alone in our modified living room, processing the magnitude of her betrayal. But alongside the hurt and anger was something else. Relief that my suspicions had been correct, and satisfaction that I'd prepared for exactly this scenario. Because what Ashley didn't know was that I'd been watching her carefully for months, and I'd discovered something about her that would make her abandonment far more costly than she could imagine. About 4 months before my accident, I'd hired a private investigator to look into Ashley's activities. Her behavior changes, her sudden interest in our finances, and her increasingly frequent absences had made me suspicious that she was planning something. The investigator confirmed what I'd feared. Ashley had been having an affair with Brad Kowalski, a personal trainer at her gym, but more disturbing was evidence that she'd been discussing our marriage and my assets with Brad in ways that suggested she was planning our divorce well before my accident occurred. The investigator had recorded conversations where Ashley complained about being stuck with an older man and discussed how much money she could expect from a divorce settlement. She'd even consulted with divorce attorneys about maximizing her potential payout from our shared assets. Most damning were recorded conversations where Ashley and Brad discussed what she called the golden parachute scenario. What would happen if something happened to me that would allow her to collect life insurance money instead of going through a messy divorce? That's when I made the decision that would ultimately save my financial future and expose Ashley's true nature. I quietly revised all of my insurance policies, adding specific clauses that would void payouts in cases where beneficiaries had committed adultery or were found to have conspired against the policyholder. I also changed the primary beneficiary from Ashley to a trust I established for charity, with Ashley only receiving minimal survivor benefits if she remained faithfully married to me. More importantly, I increased my life insurance coverage to $5 million and added a $2 million disability policy, but I never mentioned these changes to Ashley. As far as she knew, our coverage was limited to a basic $250,000 policy that would barely cover funeral expenses. So when Ashley walked out on me, claiming we faced financial ruin, she had no idea that my disability benefits would actually provide me with a comfortable income for life, and that her abandonment had triggered the clauses that would strip her of any claims to the larger insurance payouts. But I wasn't done gathering evidence against her. Using security cameras I'd installed throughout our house during my recovery, I documented Ashley's visits to collect her belongings. What I discovered was that she wasn't just taking her personal items, she was also removing valuable artwork, jewelry, and electronics that she claimed were gifts from me. More disturbing was footage of Ashley and Brad discussing ways to expedite my death to access what they believed were substantial life insurance payouts. They talked about tampering with my medical equipment, causing accidents that would look natural for someone with my injuries, and even researching medications that could cause fatal complications. I forwarded this evidence to both the police and my insurance company, building a case that would not only protect me legally, but also expose Ashley's attempted insurance fraud. The confrontation came 6 months after Ashley left, when she received notice that her divorce settlement would be minimal due to the adultery clause in our prenuptial agreement and evidence of her conspiracy to commit fraud. She arrived at my house, furious and desperate, demanding to know why she wasn't receiving the insurance money she'd expected. "Daniel, this is ridiculous," she said, pacing around my living room while I remained calm in my wheelchair. "You can't just cut me out of everything because our marriage didn't work out. I have rights." "You're absolutely right, Ashley. You have the rights that someone who commits adultery and conspires to murder her husband deserves under the law." Her face went white. "What are you talking about?" I played several of the recorded conversations between her and Brad, including their discussions about expediting my death and their detailed knowledge of our supposed insurance policies. "You thought you were walking away from financial ruin and a damaged husband," I said calmly. "What you didn't know was that I'd been preparing for your betrayal for months, and your perfect escape plan was actually perfect evidence for a criminal prosecution." Ashley tried to claim the recordings were fake or taken out of context, but when I showed her footage of her and Brad discussing specific methods for causing my accidental death, she realized the extent of her legal exposure. "Daniel, please," she said, her arrogance finally cracking. "Brad and I were just talking. We never actually did anything." Attempted murder and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud are crimes even when you don't succeed, Ashley. And abandoning your disabled husband while stealing marital assets just makes it worse. The criminal trial lasted 8 months. Ashley and Brad were both convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and attempted insurance fraud. Ashley received 15 years in prison while Brad got 8 years for his role in the scheme. During sentencing, the judge specifically noted that Ashley's abandonment of her disabled husband demonstrated a level of callousness that warranted the maximum penalty under the law. As for me, the disability insurance I'd purchased provided me with a substantial monthly income that, combined with my business assets, allowed me to live comfortably and independently. I hired full-time care assistants and modified my house to be completely accessible. The irony wasn't lost on me that Ashley's greed and cruelty had ultimately cost her everything she'd hoped to gain. She'd walked away from a marriage to a financially secure man who would have provided for her throughout her life, and instead ended up in prison during what should have been the prime years of her youth. 6 months after her conviction, I received a letter from Ashley in prison. She wrote that she finally understood the magnitude of her mistakes and asked if I could find it in my heart to forgive her. The letter went directly into my fireplace, unread beyond the first paragraph. Ashley had taught me that some people see marriage as a financial transaction rather than a partnership, and that age gaps can create dangerous power imbalances when one person is motivated primarily by money. But she'd also proven that careful preparation and documentation can protect you from even the most calculated betrayal. What she didn't know was that I'd been hiding something about our insurance policy that would destroy her perfect escape plan. Sometimes the best protection against those who see you as a payday is making sure they never understand your true worth until it's too late to claim it.